finally free from all the bullshit strings, and I can run WrestleBound the way I want to and not be under threat by the likes of my own flesh and blood that's the color blue. And to prove this is my show, I'm gonna choose the game, and it's not gonna be one that I already know is Kane Lita storyline's level of suck, but instead one that has a chance of being good, and also reminds me of what I've been going through these last few episodes. WWE Day of Reckoning. It's upon us, like Mordecai.
Man, 2004 was a year for WWE, wasn't it? Ratings were steady but a far cry from where they once were. We got some false hope that the Reign of Terror would end, and the Blue brand would also get its own terrifyingly terrible champion. But on the video game side, it was seemingly prosperous, and it was only going to continue on Nintendo's Cube that played games. WWE Day of Reckoning was the 4th WWE game on the GameCube, and the 6th wrestling game on the system overall. THQ and Ukes were all over the place during this generation, with the PS2 getting the SmackDown series that would later have to face the Red brand every year, the Xbox would get the inferior brand and a WrestleMania, and while the GameCube also got some Manias, Day of Reckoning was by far the best you could have gotten on the console. It was released solely for the GameCube in North America and Europe in August and September of 2004 respectively, and later in Japan on January 13th, 2005. Support goes up to 4 players, and the ESRB rated it a T14. I really dig this box art. Probably should be up there as one of the best WWE has ever made. We have the illuminating logo with the little guy flexing in the O-zone with his silhouette looking like he's holding a title belt. Would you call this foreshadowing? Between that shadow is the greatest female wrestler of her day, Trish Stratus, and the first Evolution breakup feud of stablemates Randy Orton and Triple H. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a female performer has been featured so prominently on cover art before. It took a while for it to happen again. Still waiting for one to get her own. It'll more than likely be Charlotte. The back, like most others, will highlight a lot, but this primarily focuses on the story mode that lets you, in its own words, turn a rookie's dream into a superstar's reality. Getting fired after the first month after you were just called up and changed your gimmick from a good one to a shitty one? Yeah, I can get behind that. Alex, what did you do with the pussy? Well, if you don't know the answer to that, I took her down Brahma Bull Boulevard and checked her into the SmackDown Hotel. I was referring to the cat? You're weird. Me, the weird one? Who refers to the cat as a pussy these days? Also had a good excuse to organize my memory cards as this bad boy takes up 32 blocks. Before you had to worry about gigs, there was blocks, and 32 is a lot, believe me. But it's sure as hell worth it once you see the opening hype package. It shows all that you need to see and get excited for after shoehorning the title in there too. I also recognize the production music. It's the one you're hearing now. I remember first hearing it in a teaser for the original Pirates of the Caribbean film. Random, but effective, because I remembered it. But I wonder if y'all will be able to recognize this roster. It's not as different to what we saw previously on SVR as they were made and released around the same time, but I still find it to be such a strange and unique time capsule with guys like
lady to mess with. Woo! Ooh, chavo.
And that guy, who you really shouldn't be a fan of these days. It surprised me JBL was omitted from the game, but that could have been a small form of punishment for that goose-stepping incident in Germany, never forget. But I'm picking Matt Hardy because I'm a follower of Mattitude, and he'll go against Edge as their eventual feud wasn't too far off from here.
It hadn't started yet, but the precipice around it was taking shape.
My selection of Matt Hardy was a better choice than initially thought, as I could see his version 1.0 entrance complete with map facts. Though the slowness worried me, I was reassured that the game was working just fine when Edge came out. Guess Hardy's Wi-Fi isn't up to snuff.
Alex fact number 473. I know what this is.
I also know these controls pretty well too. On the best controller ever made, you use the stick to move, the A button for grappling, and B button for striking. Holding either button will result in stronger attacks, and using the control stick with A shall allow you to do different moves. The D-pad does taunts, Y makes you run or do other commands if you hold it, X picks up weapons, R reverses strikes, while L reverses grapples.
Z and the C stick aren't used, which is probably for the better, but what it has is comfortable. It feels good to execute moves. Counter, on the other hand, we'll get to that.
Like most wrestling games, you have to perform varying moves and attacks to build up your special meter as well as damage your opponent's body. You also have a spirit meter that the game builds up, being capable of shifting the momentum if you find yourself on the ropes. Though the mechanic didn't come into play, the ultimate opportunist caught me off guard with a finisher or two, and he picked up the win.
Damn. Well, when you pick a Hardy, you gotta remember that a Hardy is stronger than death. Rematch!
I also noticed that this game puts a good spotlight on submission holds, as you do have to mash the hell out of the green A button to force your opponent a little closer to submitting.
Thank God it's big too. And green, and says A on it. You can't miss it.
With a little more weakening and adrenaline, I built enough of my meter to activate my special and hit the twist of fate, make the pin, get the win, as it should have been.
If you remember that feud, it was pretty much a one-sided affair officially. God, Matt Hardy got the short end of the stick, and he wasn't even that short.
Okay, I got this shit down. Now I'm ready to tackle whatever this game has to offer. I decided to keep the Edge and Matt Hardy feud going by playing their best hits, starting with the ladder match, which barely lasted a minute as I climbed up the ladder and grabbed the championship title hanging there.
I guess that goes to show men are just better at grabbing random objects from atop of the ladder. That's why a guy won the first women's Money in the Bank. That's a cheap dig, I'm sorry that left my lips.
Finally did a steel cage match, and boy did my arm get a workout. Steel cage matches only let you win by escaping the cage, and that's definitely easier said than done in this game, as you gotta mash the fuck out of the A button to get an inch up the cage, and hope to God your opponent doesn't get up, or you hit the wrong button.
God damn it, this is worse than not being able to pin. Why will they never let us pin in a steel cage? The match stayed inside the steel and it eventually led to a draw. But I gotta admit, it was better than the last couple Hell in a Cell pay-per-views, including the last one, main event aside.
I then mixed and matched the other match types, like having a fatal 4-way in the demonic structure with all the members of Evolution, or a triple threat hardcore match where the ref got his shit kicked in.
But unlike most WWE referees, he got back up and even dodged an oncoming Rhino. We need more refs like that. Bryce Remsburg is a good candidate.
Other things I tried were a tag team TLC, a handicap tables match, a Royal Rumble, and an Iron Man match, with the only thing I took away was that Shawn Michaels shakes his ass like Richie Rich.
You know how that kid would just shake his little rich ass all the time? Well, fuck you, you're dead. I also had to subject myself again to the shameful bra and panties match, and I feel so bad for subjecting Molly Holly to it. She got her head shaved at WrestleMania 20 just so the title could be represented and not subjected to nothing but TNA. You know the one I mean. Justice for Women in Wrestling.
The good times aren't gonna last too much longer. We've been through most of the good stuff, but there's still a little more to go over. Options are minimal but are your basic stuff. Tutorial is a nice introduction to the controls if you want to use it.
They know the fans can't read, but we do know one word, tutorial, and that just insults our manhood. The only real way to play is to fucking mash.
The shop zone, like SVR, is where you can unlock some additional stuff with the cash you've earned from, in Day of Reckoning's case, the story mode. So we gotta get paid, but first we gotta create a superstar. I didn't think the casts in this game would have so much to toggle with, but I was pretty impressed with the amount of depth. It felt more sandboxy than most others, and I got a decent looking me out of it, missing my name on the shirt, but I did find this paint tool, just didn't know how to implement a finished design.
How are people gonna recognize who I am without my name? There's nothing memorable about me besides my ex umlaut.
I even had a ball making my entrance, which you'll see for yourself when we head into the story mode. This story is pretty much your own, or what WWE thinks every hopeful will go through. Once you've had a meeting with Mr. McMahon, you're assigned to developmental, where you face other trainees to better hone your craft.
And who do you think is gonna make it to the big leagues? This beefcake? This jobber? Or this, gay cowboy? Or me, with enough pyro to make Cody Rhodes weep? I'm also coming out to Breaking Benjamin's Firefly, one of my new favorite songs. Day of Reckoning has the same soundtrack as SVR, so don't be surprised if you're hearing the same music.
The first stage of this mode has Jonathan Coachman asking you to do certain things in your matches like it's another tutorial with proper matches. As you progress, you can earn some points to boost abilities and earn money to unlock stuff in the shop, and in time you'll eventually catch the eye of Paul Heyman, back when he had a ponytail, and will get moved up to doing matches on Heat?
Whoever debuts on Heat, that's a death nail before you even begin.
Anyway, I didn't get a chance to experience Sunday nights as I first had to beat a rehabbing Booker T, but the difficulty shot up as he about countered my every fucking move, and I wouldn't say these triggers are the best for countering as you gotta press them all the way to make them effective. So with having admittedly the worst countering defense ever, my dream ended in developmental.
The story is supposed to get real good when you move up to the brand of your choice, where on Raw you would join Evolution, or on SmackDown you could join Undertaker's revived Ministry of Darkness, and I was gonna alter my costume to fit in with the groups, but no! Booker T had to ruin it for ya. Can you dig it, sucker? How about can you dig my foot up your ass?
The first Day of Reckoning received real high praise from the dirt sheets, with a few exceptions, and I assume it sold well since it got a sequel the next year, which we'll probably get to next season. We gotta space this shit out, you know. But in the meantime, I'll fill you in on some of the other GameCube games in the future, so be on the lookout for those episodes.
This era of wrestling when this game was released isn't looked back on fondly. Though it had its moments, the negatives were starting to outweigh the positives, and though there would be a light at the end of the tunnel, it wouldn't come to the company until next year. But right now, the light shined on games like this.
It's been a while since I played a real good wrestling game, which might cloud my judgment a little bit, but by the power vested in me, I still deem this game as worthy of your time. Day of Reckoning is an excellent game with simple controls, decent graphics, and plenty to do. Definitely all a wrestling fan would need to keep themselves busy. Though it isn't all the way perfect, as I think there could have been a little more depth put into the match types and more depth into the roster. I know most of us don't like seeing his face, but he and several others deserve to be in the game. But other than that, this was a solid first entry into what might be an underrated WWE series. It built upon what came before and would excel in the future. Maybe they should revive it just for Nintendo owners, because 2K doesn't give a shit about the fans that own their systems. Just gotta look at 2K17 as evidence of that.
I'm feeling generous today. I enjoyed this game a good amount, and being on the GameCube did it some favors too, so I'm gonna give this 4 stars. Man, I've never felt better in all my life. I feel like $1,000,000. I wish I had that kind of dough, but I at least have enough to buy another game that could give me another kind of wrestling experience. One that comes traditionally from south of the border.